And even if you started, let's say, as a sales coach or as someone who is selling pottery online or anything that you're going to do, once you get more successful, your day isn't going to be filled with making pottery or coaching people on sales. Your day is going to be spent managing people. And so I think that this kind of accidental falling into this role is a big part of why so many people hate their job, frankly. Not to say that if you didn't intend to be a manager that you're a bad manager, but I do think that all of the bad managers that are out there never intended to be a manager. They were trying to, have financial security themselves, or they were trying to somehow elevate themselves or have a better life for them and their family. And so because they didn't plan management, they end up not doing everything that's needed to make sure that the employees are really taken care of. And then you end up with most of the people, obviously, most people are employees. And so if most people are employees and their managers only chose it because it was a promotion that would pay them more or because they wanted to start a business for themselves, then you end up with this world filled with people who are miserable for, a third of their life. And so I really saw that, like working at my last job, I really saw that people were living in that life where they weren't fulfilled in their workplace, not necessarily because they couldn't be, but just because there weren't the systems in place for them to be. And so one of my big purposes and really what drives me on management is that I want, a software, because obviously a software can spread to many companies much faster than I ever could as a consultant. And I want the software to spread through companies and make the lines for things like promotions and make the lines for asking questions, getting answers, make those really nice and efficient and easy for the manager who, wants those tools to make the job easy, and for the employee who wants to have the care and the systems there to know that they're important. So that's basically my main purpose in the software, is really to my dream is to make work better for most of the people in the world. I would love to have created that, to have more people feel fulfilled and happy with their job and their life. Kind of lofty.
Yeah, I love this dream. So I wanted to ask you, since you have been in the HR department or HR industry for 15 years and over, you have experience in human relation over 15 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wanted to know, how is it like managing people and building relationship with them? I know it's not easy. How is the experience?
It's a really good question. Honestly, I think that managing people is funny. Hiring people, firing people. It's a really funny job to enjoy because there's so many people who think of HR and they kind of go, as I was kind of saying a little bit earlier on, why I'm building this company. A big reason why I'm actually building this company is because I want to manage people. I'm not necessarily as concerned about making good money myself. I mean, I made very good money in my last job. I'm sure I will make good money with this job. But the main reason for my change was that I wanted to be able to run teams the way that I wanted to run them. I wanted to be able to just be a manager and build, great employees who could maybe even leave my company and go on and do great big things. And so for me, anytime I've been in a hiring role or a managerial role, a big part for me is to help people with their growth. Not always through let's say a more exact mentoring program, but when you take someone in, especially I love employees who aren't experts in their fields, who are a little bit newer, and I love taking them and seeing where they excel. Sometimes it's not where you hire someone. You hire someone to be, let's say, a graphic designer, and you find that what they really enjoy is dealing with people. So you put them in HR, or you hire someone who's supposed to work in IT, but you notice that in IT, they have to deal with people much more than they thought they would. And so they actually enjoy being in more of a production area, putting figurines together or putting, something physical together. And so it's a little bit like playing God, honestly, if I'm honest, but being in the role where I can have that ability to take people who have just, apply for a job. Not everyone applies with the biggest lofty goals, but, so when you apply for a job, I see something in them. I think that they can be better than they are, and I can help them go through that transition and be happy with their life. I think that's great. I mean, I think it's also interesting and worth noting that not every employee needs some bigger role in order to be happy. And I think that's a really important part of being a manager at HR, right? Because, and I talked to working as an entrepreneur who's trying to build a company, there's also a lot of people who don't want work to be the central part of their life. They want a job where they can go, they know the exchange of what, is required of them. They're happy to produce it, and then they can produce that and then go home and spend time on their hobbies or with their family. And I think that's great. I think it's really important that you get people who want to be in those roles into those roles and you let them be there. You don't need to push and prod them if they're happy just being like that really reliable player on your team. So I think that's something that can be somewhat unique about me, is I love like also looking for those people and watching out for them and making sure that they get to be in the role that they want to be.
That's nice. And also, as you were speaking, something came across my mind about culture. Some of the, I'll say, organizations, their staff or their employees know nothing about their organizational culture. It's like, it seems they don't educate their workers about it. So what do you say about culture and people in organizations?
I think that there's a lot of cultures at work, and obviously it's important. There's kind of like I would say like a plus and a negative to your culture and what you decide your company is going to be like. As an example, some companies are really cutthroat, right? Some companies are very, very produce or get out, and everyone's kind of treated like a salesperson. Or if you're not a salesperson, you're treated like you're not worth very much, because salespeople are what matters. So if you want to make money, you have to switch into a sales role. And some companies are like that. And while other companies are, more your Google, and they're more laid back with, unlimited benefits, and they play this other type of game that is very much less cutthroat. And then there's, things that are obviously very much in between. There's also some corporations that are happy to be very boring. They want to just, go around and do the work and not really interact too much. And they're just kind of there to do their job. And, I think these are all cultures. And another thing that I often see is that people will kind of push towards one culture or another. If you talk to like certain people, they'll be very into the shark mentality, and it's a dog eat dog world. And other people will be very into, the softer mentality. And I think that it's important that people who are in managerial positions, owners, that they decide what type of company they actually want. And if they want a cutthroat company, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with a cutthroat company. If they want a company that gives unlimited benefits and is very free and open, there's nothing wrong with that. If they want to be boring, there's nothing wrong with that. But then they have the responsibility to only hire and bring on people who will fit that mentality, right? And that's where I think a lot of people get a bad name, a lot of companies get a bad name, is because they'll be, let's say, this boring company where everyone's just kind of there, they do their job and they go home, and that's kind of the vibe. And then they'll go and they'll hire this sales shark who will wreak havoc in their company because the sales shark was going to bring, the owner a lot of money. And the thing is that if you're going to have that culture of boredom, then you have no business ever hiring someone who's going to be cutthroat, because he's going to have a horrible time and your employees are going to have a horrible time, because the things don't mix, So I think that it's really important that you decide your culture, that you stick to your culture, that you write some documents that explain what it is that you're there for and the way you're going to operate. And then when you're hiring people, you give that document to people and you make them ask questions about the company and how it works to make sure that you have the right people for your team. Because the right people for your team isn't necessarily the right people for all teams. There's lots of successful companies who are run wildly different ways.
Because sometimes the culture will be developed and given to the staff or employee, but it seems the top managers are not, I would say, conforming to this culture. It's like leadership is missing. Because I know some companies, they have bunch of culture, they have policies that they will give you, but they don't compile by all of them. So what would you say to such companies?
Yeah, I would just say that they need to pay attention, because obviously, like, a thing that some owners don't fully understand is that, like, in order to be successful, things need to flow. And so if you're kind of wishy-washy on the direction of your company or the type of company that you want to have, right? Like kind of what you're saying, like, they start on some path and write some policies going, oh yeah, we're going to give all these benefits, whatever, but then they have it down